Good afternoon. I'm Lauren Sonnenberg with LifeCore, and welcome to this week's episode of Mind Body Talk on chronic pain. And today we're talking about what to do when you've just been given a scary diagnosis. Now, this can be a very challenging time for people, and the diagnosis could be, of course, a pain-related one, or somebody could have another big diagnosis, perhaps a cancer diagnosis. So what I'm talking about today does broadly apply, so take from it what's helpful for you. And my goal is to help you to have a mindset that's going to support you, and to have a basic action plan so that you are not feeling like you're in the dark and not knowing how to go forward. Okay. Let me also remind you, I'm a psychotherapist and a wellness consultant. I'm not a medical doctor, and LifeCore is not a medical facility. So I'm offering you education today, and the advice I'm offering you is not medical advice. You need to be able to continue conversations with your medical and healthcare providers. And of course, as a person goes down, say, a mind-body healing path, if symptoms change and such for them, that's a conversation they need to have with their medical provider so that if their care needs to be adjusted, their care is adjusted properly. So let's come to this notion, this juncture. Somebody's just been given a big, scary diagnosis. You're afraid, you're shocked. There are a lot of questions and not so many answers to go with those questions for a lot of people when they're first diagnosed. Okay. There's uncertainty. How's my life going to change? What am I actually going to have to physically experience? And then there are these images that go through people's minds depending upon the diagnosis, that often are scary. Okay. And then there's thrown in a little bit, for some people, a little bit of a sense of relief, because now they finally have a label. Okay. But that's kind of a mixed bag of relief, because it's like, I have this relief, I have this label, but I don't physically feel better yet, and I don't really know how I got this thing. And if I don't know how I got this thing, this diagnosis, I don't really know how to unget it. Okay? So we're going to be addressing that today. So you have that. The mindset that's going to be the most supportive for your journey to going from having this diagnosis to a place where you can be diagnosis free. Okay. And I have to say that what I'm going to be talking about today, especially when I get into like the second point, after the initial, my initial suggestion to dealing with this diagnosis, when I get into the second point, actually, I just lost my track on that. So sorry about it. We'll come around. You'll see where I'm going with that. Okay, so the first point. Let's go into the first point, okay? All right. You need to not panic. Now, you may have already started panicking, okay? That's all right. Here's what you do. Here's what you do, okay? You take deep breaths, okay? You first breathe in through your nose. You breathe out through your nose. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through your nose. That's the first step. Breathing is your first step. It sounds basic, but it's going to help you. If your panic level is high, it's going to help you come down. Okay? Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through your nose. First things first. Just like in my little example there. You know what? You're human. Sometimes things come at you and your mind gets off on a different track. That's all right. Sometimes a diagnosis will come into your life and it throws you for a loop. That's okay. What do? We come back to the basics. You need to first breathe. You need to breathe in and you need to breathe out. It is okay. We can handle what's coming our way. I made up 2 words this week. Everything is handleable. Everything is deal withable. It works. So we just need to have a little bit of direction, and we need to have a little bit of knowledge, and we can work through this. And then with that comes skills, and with that comes clarity, and with that comes the path that we need to be on to be able to go from having this diagnosis to be able to be moving to a place where we're not scared about it, and where we see progress in terms of our health and well-being. So you have the deep breaths. Now the other thing I want you to do, and this is just bare bones, this is not the whole tapping technique, but I just want you to take 2 or 3 fingers, like the thumb. You can do all 5 of them, depends upon what you want to do here, on these collarbone points, and which is about 1 inch down and 1 inch out from your little collarbone nubs there. So I want you to just tap in a circle. This is only one tapping point with the EFT tapping, and you probably don't even know what EFT is yet, and I'll tell you a little bit later, okay? So first of all, what's happening here is that your cortisol levels are going down, okay? The stress hormone is going down. And I'm not just telling you to calm down and not panic just as a pat response or a canned response. And I think you probably know that already here. But when we're calmer, we're able to see the forest through the trees, and that's not the only reason why. Here's another reason. We don't want to create new conflicts on top of ones we already have, okay? We want to keep our fear about our diagnoses. We want to be able to address it so it doesn't get blown out of proportion, because what happens as you start to understand what I'm going to talk about going forward, you're going to see how it all relates, and you're going to see why we don't want to add layers of complexity to an existent experience that we're having with a diagnosis and all the emotions around it, okay? So that's first thing first. So the minute, every second that you get this sense of, oh my goodness, I have this reaction, and your mind's running away with itself, you just breathe and you tap. Breathe in and breathe out. This is what we do. You get grounded. Start with the basics. Start with the basics. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Now, you can keep tapping if you'd like, but after one of those points get a little bit sensitive. So there's more to it than that. So here's the next part. When you think you need to unget this diagnosis and all the symptoms that have come with it, there's a sense of, on some level, it's almost like I'm poisoned with this toxic thing. I need to get rid of it. I need to get it away from me, out of my body, out of my mind, out of my life. And what's going to help you see it differently is knowing that when you have symptoms that are coming up, your body's doing one of 2 things. It's adapting or it's healing. Both are part of a biologically pre-programmed, your body's programmed to do this. Your body knows exactly what to do in response to certain conflicts. And I'm talking about biological conflicts. You might have heard of them potentially as psychobiological conflicts. I like to call them bioemotional. Rolls off the tongue a little easier. So what we're talking about there is essentially what happens to us in our life impacts us on the biological level. It impacts us on the psychological and emotional level. You can't separate them. So when somebody first looks at this mind-body concept, and some people are already on board with it, and other people, it may be a totally new concept for them. And some people think, oh my goodness, wait, are you saying that I caused my illness? Are you blaming me? And I've done a whole video on that. And so I go into great detail with, why there's no blame involved when we're talking about the mind-body connection to pain. If you want me to put the link in the comments, just say blame link, Lauren. I want to look at that one, and I'll get that one off of YouTube for you. Okay. But there is no blame involved. The shortcut answer, the very, very short answer is you can't undo your programming. You can't undo what's been biologically programmed into you. You can't take the psyche and the emotional piece and the brain and the body and dissect it into its little parts. That's not how we're built. And people are learning this. People know it intuitively, and now they're learning it because now we have a science. Thankfully, we have a very wonderful science that actually lays it all out for us. Okay, it lays it all out for us. And this is the reason I'm talking about this today. One of the many reasons. But people want to know, okay, what do I do? Now, what often happens is a person goes through the realm of, you know, the typical medications that are given to them, and maybe they're trying some other modalities here and there, and maybe something helps with the symptoms a little bit here and something helps with the symptoms a little bit there. But many times there's not an understanding as to why a person's going through what they're going through. They don't have the science in front of them that explains why. So if you don't have that, it gets to be really hairy and messy because you don't understand what's happening. And when something is actually healing, you interpret the symptom as I'm getting worse. That's one possibility. And that's a big piece of it, but there's more to it than that. But there is a reason everything's happening. Your body's not going haywire. Even though there are a lot of medical theories out there that basically say the body's kind of going rogue, and I'm, you know, using non-technical terms there, but the body's kind of, you know, attacking itself or doing this or doing that. No, that's actually theoretical, and we don't really have proof of that. So what we need to do is turn to a science. Now, what we have, and this is why I said it's going to be a very educational, hopefully, video for you, is that we have German New Medicine, which was given to us by the late Dr. Hammer, a German physician. And what he found, giving you the shortened version here, is that specific conflicts that have shocks involved with them, conflict shock, create a biological response in the body. So you have this conflict active phase, and then if you're able to resolve that conflict, you have the conflict resolution or healing phase. Now, depending upon the conflict that you've experienced, you're going to have a different set of symptoms. You may not have symptoms that show up until the healing phase. And this is what blows a lot of people's minds, is that, wait, you're saying that my fibromyalgia is coming up in the healing phase? And yes, it doesn't feel good. That's for sure. But our goal here is to get you on the path to feeling as good as possible as soon as possible. Okay? So we need to implement this understanding of German New Medicine for a person as soon as possible. So what does that look like in terms of an action step? You need to work with, my advice would be that you find a German New Medicine practitioner in your area, or somebody who works online, like phone or video. I myself work online, phone or video, but some people like to work with people face to face. That is a very important process. So otherwise, that's an important step of this process, because you need to feel comfortable, and you need to know exactly what's going to happen next in your process of having this diagnosis. And that is going to give you a lot of empowerment. That's going to make you feel like, okay, I know to expect this. I know what steps to take. I know what I need to be looking for. And the quicker we have that in place, the sooner a person feels better. Now, this is what the other important piece. Okay. If we don't have that, this is where diagnoses become chronic ones, where you start and you have these symptoms over and over again. Because if we don't understand why it happened, we may not be able to identify what the trigger is, and that trigger could keep occurring. We may be stuck in a loop. The pain itself becomes its own trigger for many people, and so you're kept in a chronic loop. hanging healing is the term they would use from a German new medicine perspective. So we don't want this. Now, I was talking about before, somebody might call me up and they may have been dealing with a diagnosis for 10, 15, 20 years. And they tried everything, okay, is what I was starting to say before. They tried everything, but they never really they might have even gotten to some of the emotional pieces, but they didn't have an understanding of the science. And so, like, working on the understanding what exactly is going on and working on the emotional piece through a German new medicine lens is like the last stop on their journey. Now, if that's the thing that's going to ultimately help you, you don't want to wait 10, 15 years to do that, because things are going to get more complicated and messy, and you have to go through all of that. And the sooner you get in there and understand what's going on, the clarity is going to come, and then you can get on that path to resolution much more. You can get on it and work through it more quickly. People are tired. People have spent lots and lots and lots of money. A lot of times, by the time I get the phone call, they're exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally, just frustrated. They've been dealing with their diagnoses for so many years, and they're kind of at a loss. I don't want you to have to go through that. I don't want you to have to go through that. And it's a lot easier work for us if you've just gotten the diagnosis and you're closer in time to what may have been the activating conflict. Okay, so I'm stressing this. I'm stressing this because I've seen so many people who have been just devastated. Their lives have been devastated by their chronic illness, their chronic pain, their chronic illness. And I don't want to see you walk this path. It's just something that if there's a way to go that's more efficient, we should go that route. Okay. Now, people can say, well, what do I do if I have a medical doctor? Why don't they know about this? That's another story for another day. You can ask me that question, and I'm happy to answer that, why I think it might be that way. What do I do? Well, you can still work with your medical practitioners. It's just that you're going to have a framework and an understanding that's going to really kind of fill in the blanks for you. And I help people with that, and because it can be challenging at times for people, because some of the understanding runs counter to that which is in conventional medicine. So that comes out for a person, but we can work through that. Okay, we can work through that. Now, another important piece, and not every German new medicine practitioner uses energy therapies. Okay. And I do. I learned EFT before I learned German new medicine. EFT and matrix reimprinting are energy therapies. I do highly recommend for a person, even if you don't have a GNM practitioner, start working on your fear, your shock, the uncertainty, all the emotions that you have in response to having this new diagnosis. Work on that with an EFT practitioner. If you're looking for somebody in your area, ask me. I'll help you find somebody. If you want to work via phone or video, that's something I can help you with. And obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but having somebody who knows the GNM and the EFT is very, very helpful, because I found with this work, it's generally not just what just happened in a person's life in terms of the conflict that led into their symptoms. But a lot of this, even though they were symptom-free prior to, a lot of this, like 98% of it, has its roots, if not more, in childhood. So there's a lot of work. We end up doing a fair amount of trauma work for a lot of people. And that may be scary and daunting, and people sometimes put that off for a long time, and I get it. It's not a place that most people want to go to, but when people do, when they have gone through, and we gently tiptoe through it, but once you go through it, so many people are just so relieved, and they're glad that they finally were able to move past it. Take traumatic memories, turn them into memories. And so I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of EFT and matrix reimprinting, but they work not just on the level of like the cognitive, not just getting you to see things differently and reframing it and restructuring it. But also, since there's a bodily response involved, like I said, when we're doing this tapping, and I gave you the original, the one point we talked about when we did the collarbone tapping, you're literally changing like your cortisol levels in the body. So there's a mechanism that goes with EFT, and there's a mechanism that occurs with the matrix reimprinting, and I'm not going to go into all of that right now. But basically, in short, what I've given you so far today is, first, we need to get a handle on the scared feeling, on the fear, on the shock. That's the first. And I gave you some techniques as to how to help with that. Number two, we have to have the educational understanding. Why do I have this thing? Why do I have these symptoms right now? GNM will give you that clarity. When we have that clarity, the world changes, it opens up, and the fear we have around our diagnoses starts to dissipate, starts to go away. Now, this is key, because like I said, we don't want fear to snowball. That's not going to help us. When we get panicky, we lock our healing from happening, or we slow it down. Let's just say it that way. We don't want to do that, and we don't want to complicate it, okay? So we have that. And thirdly, I find it highly beneficial for people when they're doing clinical EFT, when you're getting to specific events related to what's led up to your symptoms and what's happened in the past that may have led to that as well too, on different levels. When you're doing that work, it's powerful work when you're doing that all together. And I have found through my experience working with people with chronic pain and illness that this is the best way that I have found so far. And I'm so thankful for the brilliant people that have brought forth German New Medicine, people who have brought forth EFT, matrix reimprinting, and the people who have taken those bodies of information and taught them, promoted them, put it out for the world to see, so that practitioners can learn it and go and help everybody else. And the beautiful thing is, and I say this, like, I'm really thrilled to see the conventional medical community is getting on board. They're definitely getting on board with mind body, slowly but surely. And people are even growing up with that around them more than in prior generations. Okay, this is a beautiful thing to see. There is a more intuitive and innate understanding of it. And then there are people seeking this out past their medical education, going beyond that and seeking it out and learning it. And this applies also to people outside of the medical profession, like in the mental health realms and other holistic therapies as well. So it is so great to see. And also people who are dealing with symptoms honoring their intuitive self that says there's something beyond this. This is not just I should take a pill for the rest of my life and make the pharmaceutical companies rich. I mean, there's a place for pharmaceuticals, and it's normally in the short-term acute care where you have something going on, you need it addressed immediately as a life-saving measure or an acute measure. But if you have to take a pill for something for the rest of your life, you're not getting to the root of the issue. I'm not telling you to get off your pills. I'm just saying I'm putting things in a framework here where you understand that there is another path for you. And the diagnosis is not a sentence. It's not a life sentence. It doesn't have to be. There is a pathway for you. And I hope you look back in a couple months from now, a year from now, and are able to see, if you end up doing this kind of work with me or with somebody else, that you're able to see how powerful this was. Because back to the ungetting piece, and you're not ready to hear this yet, so I want you to take this and say, blah, 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 Lauren, and put it on the back burner and come back to it, okay? But you'll see what I mean in some time, okay? This has come into your life to allow you, these symptoms, this diagnosis has come into your life to allow you healing on so many levels, and healing and transformation that you may not be aware of yet. Not just physical healing. So it's like, oh, I don't feel good right now, and afterwards I feel better. That's nice. That's great. Sure, that's part of our goal. We want people to feel good in their bodies. But this is all coming about for deeper reasons as well. And that, I could tell you that all day long, but it doesn't matter until you see it yourself. So I invite you to open a new door. It's a scary door for many. I totally understand. We've all been there at that juncture at different points in our lives. Everybody has that door open at a different point in time. And it's normally when we're feeling like we have no more options, and what do I do now? Or the options we see in front of us don't look so appealing. So we say, what do I do now? Well, I've just given you a couple of options. And again, to reiterate, you're certainly welcome to set up a free wellness consultation over the phone with me. You're certainly welcome to ask questions below, or to message me, or to join the free chronic pain, mind, body empowerment group that I have. And you can ask any questions you want in there. It's a very safe place to ask questions. So I am glad that you've come across this video, if you're watching it on the replay. And go forth with confidence that this is going to work out for you. And let me know if I can be of help. Take care. Bye-bye.